Okay, everyone, we'll go ahead and begin here. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Mike Harmy. I'm from Infusionsoft Business Development. We're here today to discuss the new Xero Connect integration, syncing integration that connects between Xero and Infusionsoft. And so for those of you that do use Xero and are familiar with it, it's the cloud-based accounting software. And so the great thing, we'll get into really what this integration is all about, what key features and benefits it offers, sort of how it came to development, and then we'll get a little hands-on how to use the integration and install it. And then we really want to leave some time at the end just for any questions for the audience. So feel free to utilize the chat feature during the session, as well as you should be able to unmute yourself if needed. So yeah, sorry folks, we have the agenda here. So just again, we'll make some quick introductions. We've also got on the call with us Workato. Workato is the developing partner for this integration that Infusionsoft worked with. And again, we'll talk about benefits and features, installation and getting started, and then actually using the app. And as I mentioned, we'll have Q&A at the end. So let's start with who Workato is and sort of how this integration came to be. So the Infusionsoft product team started doing pretty extensive research last spring just on the need for accounting sync with your CRM, sales and marketing, Infusionsoft. And so really we started identifying what are the needs for syncing your financial database with your CRM and sales and marketing database. And Workato came across to us and really stood out. Workato's been in the integration space for 25 plus years. They started with a lot of the financial companies on Wall Street, in the late 80s. They've got over 100 other existing integrations, with big companies like Facebook and Box and a lot others, Slack. So really just the flexibility that Workato offers is something that stood out to us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And Amlan, if you'd like to add anything else just about Workato and your guys' expertise in this area.
Sure. No, thanks, Mike. So Workato has, like Mike said, Workato has been in the integration business for a very long time. We've worked with mainframe systems before mainframe and ERP on-premise systems, and when the cloud applications started becoming important, we got into the cloud apps, and the focus has been to make it simple enough for people to use and yet powerful enough for you to model your business cases, business needs in integration. So we have been working with ISVs like like Infusionsoft to create packaged integrations, which the end customers for Infusionsoft should be able to just start and stop. And if that doesn't solve the need for the customer, then they can always go ahead and customize it. So that's with that, simple goals in mind, we got into this integration, and I think so far we have done pretty good with the early customers who came on. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, we started. We had a good beta group of about 25 folks, back in October timeframe, and launched this at PartnerCon. To our partner community. So our partner community, the experts in Infusionsoft really got integrated with this and gave some great feedback. So yeah, let's jump over to really what are the benefits and features of this integration. So I want to point out just the ease of use for this integration. Once after you install it, the integration comes with 13 core recipes is what they're called. They're just recipes are just connectors that connect. Think of Workato, in this integration as a bridge between Infusionsoft and Xero. And so these recipes, these core recipes, are a one click and go, ready to use out of the box type of connector. So, and we'll look at that a little more hands-on, and you can see what I'm referring to there. But it's really nice for someone that just wants the out-of-the-box solution to start syncing. They just have to add a few settings that we'll look at here, and then they're ready to go from there. Another big thing that really stood out to us just with Workato's capabilities is the bidirectional syncing. So not very many other integrations like this can do bidirectional syncing. It's been only one-way syncing. So that was a huge need for users during our research is just the ability to synchronize data in both directions, whether Infusionsoft's the first point and Xero's the end point, or vice versa. That was a huge thing for us. And so this bidirectional mechanism, which we'll look at here when we get hands-on, is huge. Last thing I want to touch on is just the flexibility to customize these recipes that I mentioned. So although the integration comes with the 13 ready-to-go core recipes, the user can create their own recipes, and they can customize and tweak the logic and the field mapping if needed. So that's huge, and obviously that's for probably more of a technical user. If you want to explore things a little more, if you have very specific needs, this is a great thing for you. So this integration really suits best of both worlds, whether it's the out-of-the-box type of user or someone that needs more customization. Amlan, anything else to add on that?
No, I think that's good. I think once we get into the actual integration, we can talk about some of the other changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Features, yeah.
Great, and let's jump to what actually can sync over at the moment. So these are the core recipes, the core needs that we've identified during our research. And so really they're basic items, so syncing contacts and company data, whether that's a new contact or just updating a contact, that will sync. Also payment syncing. So whether a payment is applied in Infusionsoft first and you need that to sync over to Xero, or let's say you record things in Xero first and just would like to pass them over to Infusionsoft, that's huge. Also want to point out, just for any international or multi-currency folks out there, this does support multi-currency. So any currencies that are available in Infusionsoft will also work with this. You'll just need to make sure that all three systems, Xero, Infusionsoft, and Workato, have the same currency. Next, this is probably one of the biggest items that people need, is just being able to sync order and invoice information. So current reality, a lot of people have to input data in multiple places, whether they input it in Infusionsoft first and then have to manually input it into Xero. That's a lot of work, a lot of hassle, that people do on a regular basis. And so we really wanted to eliminate that with this feature. And so that's really huge. Last, I want to talk about product syncing. So that's another, double systems, multi-systems sort of chaos. Users have to input the product maybe first in Infusionsoft, and as you have to input the price, the name, the short description, all of that information, and it's very time consuming. And so this can sync over product to a Xero item is what they call it. And so that's really nice that can sync in both directions. Let's talk about just some basic info, and then we'll jump into hands-on, the setup and getting started. So this is available live today in our marketplace. So it's just a marketplace listing. You can search for it by either typing Xero or accounting. Any of those tags will pull this up. And nice thing, so it's $29 price per month. So it's a recurring subscription. There's no contract or anything. And you also get the first 30 days for free. So if you want to try it out, you'll have that trial. You can familiarize yourself with the integration. And after that, you start paying the $29. Another great thing that I want to really highlight out here is support is in-house. So level 1 support is through Infusionsoft. So you'll contact normal Infusionsoft channels, whether that's phone or chat, and all of our support staff is trained on this integration. And so that's a huge benefit. You're still going to get the delightful support experience, and we're working closely with Workato as well to escalate anything if needed. And then also just the Help Center resources that are available and the videos. Workato's produced a number of really helpful videos, very well done, very clear. They've also got a great eBook that we'll take a look at here. So many resources for the user to help them, getting started and along the way. Let's go ahead and jump into the hands-on. So I really want to show you guys the power of the integration and how to get started. So as I mentioned, you'll start from the marketplace listing and you'll click Get the App. The first thing that it's going to take you to is a Workato sort of sign up screen that you'll have to just simply create a Workato account. So you can create just a login, so if you do, let's see. So I'll just create a test one here. Accept the terms. Oops. Let's see. Oh, I got to put a character. So the very first thing that it takes you to after creating a Workato account is this pretty simple 4-step setup wizard. So it's your standard setup wizard. You'll click Continue here. The next step is very simple. You just name the connection. This is your Infusionsoft connection. Now, this isn't picky on what you put here. You can really put whatever you'd like. I would recommend maybe putting your Infusionsoft application name, just so you know which account this is for. And then you just click Connect. The next step that's going to take place is it will ask you to authorize your account. And so this is using, for those of you that are familiar with OAuth, OAuth is just connecting your Infusionsoft application with another application, which in this case is Workato. And so you'll select here on the drop-down what application you want to use. So if you've only got the one, only the one will show. If you've got multiple, though, which many people do, you'll select which account you want to link it to. So I'm going to select this one, and we'll go ahead and click Allow. And you'll notice we get this connection success message down here. And then the next button is highlighted, and I can move forward. And then the next step is the same instance, but now connecting your Xero account with Workato. So same thing, I can name it whatever I'd like. So we'll just call it primary account. And this is a Xero setting here for payroll. So whether you do payroll or not, you can specify yes or no and connect. And same instance, it then brings up a pop-up to authorize your Xero account with Workato, and we'll simply click Authorize. And Workato is now enabled. Great. And then we've got our connection success window here again, and we can go ahead and click Next. And so setup is now complete. So we can go ahead and click OK, and we're taken out of the setup wizard. And then we're now on the Workato dashboard of the integration. So this is where the user will entirely control what syncs are being ran. So let's just take a quick navigation of everything here. You've got your account information up here, what version and install date. As I mentioned, you get a free 30-day trial here. And so it's got when it expires and to buy. And then we've got these resource items here that I mentioned. So we've got these very well done help videos that Workato's produced that are all on YouTube for reference. So these are great. Any of these that say watch are videos that take you step by step. And then we've also got this ebook that is super helpful. It's about 40 pages long, very, very concise. It tells you how to get started, all the way down to what recipes are, and then it goes over each individual of the 13 recipes and how to use them. So very helpful documentation there. And then we've got our help center as well on Workato, and all of these help items are also on Infusionsoft's help center, so it's mirrored. And then back to our dashboard. So here's what I want to really go over, just this main layout area. You'll notice these are numbered and categorized by what's syncing. So this, for example, is syncing orders and invoices. And then you've got the direction it's going in. And so this is from Infusionsoft 2.0, and it also contains contacts and new items. So what this means is if a contact and a product or item is not present in 0, this recipe not only will sync the order, but it will also create a new contact and create a new item in 0 if one doesn't already exist, which is great. And so, yeah, if we scroll down, and we'll get to this here in a moment. I mean, you've got all these recipes. Again, they're categorized. This one's payments. This is syncing contacts, products, and items. So again, very, very easy, self-controlled. Again, this is the start button. Let's talk a little bit about just the configuration piece. And Amla, I'd love you to share with the audience as well, just more on this. And we've got the short description here on what this recipe does and when to use it. We've got these items here as well. So start date. Amla, do you want to talk a little bit about what these are?
Sure. So, the parameters, they control how the recipes work, how the integration works. So this is, when you are setting up the parameters, you should pay, special attention. And if you don't set up the parameters, since you see that all of these parameters are marked as required, under each parameter it says required. If it is not required, it will say optional. So these control how the integration will work, and you should think about it before before putting the data in there and starting it. And so the first parameter is important also, which is the sync state, which means the integrations will pick up data from that day onward. So whatever date you put, November 15th or November 1st, in this case, 12 a.m., since, any invoices, we are doing invoices right now, invoices or orders, any invoices created after 1st of November, 12 a.m. will be picked up. Now, what is important is that this is a one-time thing. So, if once you set it, it is not, you cannot change it anymore. So be careful with this one. And also, if you set it back too far back, if you go back like, a year, 2 years back, then, you may run into 0 API limits. So you have to be careful about that. And if you are planning to do that, let us know, because what you have to do is, phase your upgrade. So, this is mostly important for the first run, because if you're syncing up old data, and, it's important that you plan that. Once it starts running, most people don't have as that many records that it'll cause any API limitation problems. But this one is especially important because once you set it, you cannot change it anymore. So pay attention to that. The next one is the currency code. Like Mike mentioned, it supports Xero supports multiple currencies. So you are saying, when you're going to 0, when you're moving the invoice to 0, what currency code are you going to be using? So is it USD, or in this case AUD, etc. Anything that you have set up in Xero should be okay. And so this is the currency code that will be set on the invoice. The next one is the invoice status, which is also important, because the invoice that you create will be either set as approved or set as draft. The implications are that if it is set as draft, you cannot post payments against it. The downside is that that's the good side. If you set it as a approved invoice, you can post payments against it, but you cannot post any more. You cannot add line items to it or anything like that. It's just stuck from that point onwards. So, depending on your business case, you can decide whether you want to set it as draft or approved. The next one is the account code. And Mike was saying that, when customers or contacts or items are not present in Xero. So when you're moving an invoice, it has a contact that it is supposed to go under and items that are on the order. So if it doesn't find the item, it'll create it. And when it's creating the item, Xero requires that it will be associated with a sales account code for taxation purposes. So this is the default again, for creating it on the fly, it'll create this item with this account code. You can always go back and change it later on. So, again, something to talk to your accountant with, because, they may have a better idea of what account code to associate it with. For each of the integrations, you'll find similar parameters. And if you have any questions, you can always ask us. But if you have, so this one, for example, is the payment one, and it's looking for payment account code and credit account code, and so on. And we try to explain what they are. But if you have questions, just send a note to the support email that Mike showed. We can help you out. Or if you look at the bottom right corner, there's a chat window there. You can always click on that and get immediate response from the Workato chat team.
Thank you, Amlan. And yeah, here's another important parameter. I'm in the syncing products and items recipe. It's got that same start date of how, where I want this to pick up from. There's this other parameter, though, master for items. It's very important to know about. Amlan, do we want to just discuss what this is and how to use this?
Sure. Yeah, I think I forgot about that one. Yes, that's also an important one, because when you're syncing data, and if you have bidirectional sync going on, if both of them keep changing each other, it gets into a confusing situation. So we require that you set one of the systems as the master. So let's say that for products, this is important for products and customers or contacts. So if you specify that Infusionsoft is the master for you, what will happen is whenever there's a new contact or a new item, it'll be moved over to Xero. But also when there are changes, those changes will be propagated to Xero. Now, if you start the Xero to Infusionsoft integrations also on at the same time, for contacts and products, what will happen is it will only create new contacts or new items, but it will, in Infusionsoft, in response to a change in Xero, where it will not update them. It is just going to move the new ones up there. So the key thing here is that so not only deciding which one is your master, but also to be consistent. So if you say Xero is the master for items, then you make Xero the master for items for both the product integrations. If you say Xero is the master for contacts, make it Xero for both of them. So don't mix and match. If you mix and match, it can get into a confusing state.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Amlan. So yeah, as we mentioned there, each of these recipes, as you can see, you just configure this and click save, and you're ready to go. After that's configured, you'll simply just click start, and the sync continuously runs every 5 minutes on its own. So you don't have to go in every time and click start. It runs on its own. Again, it's in a controlled environment, so if you choose to stop it, you can. You can also, change that limit if needed.
So one thing I want to mention, Mike, there is that once you start it, you will not lose any more data. So if you stop it in the middle, let's say that by mistake you stopped it, or you got stopped out because, let's say that Xero was down or whatever, and things were not going through. When the systems come up back again, it'll pick up from wherever it left off last time. So there should not be any need for doing anything special. Now, if you we will get into this topic later, but if you have any errors, we'll talk about how to handle errors and what you can do there.
Yeah, you'll notice this this area right here on each recipe. So you can actually view how many errors occurred, how many jobs were ran. We were doing testing, and so I have no jobs on this one, or else they would display. We were doing testing, and I believe we were testing QuickBooks, and QuickBooks did a maintenance update while we were running the recipe, and that shows up in the errors. That message from Intuit was passed back to us. So the same instance would run here with Xero. Amlan, anything else before we jump to Q&A and any?
I think one thing I wanted to mention is that there are the recipes have built-in duplicate detection. So before it tries to create something, it will check to see if it exists. And if it exists, then it'll update it, again, depending on who's the master. So you should not see any duplicates. And also, the feature for creating missing things on the fly, that is also important. There are other things, I think maybe as we talk about questions, I see a bunch of questions have come up, we can address them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I want to mention is that, before you get started, one good practice is to kind of take a look at the data you have in your systems today and make sure that it's clean, or we can help you, clean it up, give you suggestions on how to clean it up. Because if you have bad data and you're propagating that bad data, it doesn't do you any good. So, take a look at the data. For example, Xero doesn't like item names greater than 30 characters. But Infusionsoft has no limitation. So when you try to move that, it'll cause problems. So you can, do an initial run and see, if there are items in Infusionsoft which are greater than 30 characters in length. Another thing is, sometimes you have set up some contacts and companies in Infusionsoft in response to contacts in Xero, but they are not set up properly. For example, in Infusionsoft, it lets you do a company record separate from a contact record. In Xero, it's just the same contact record. So you may have set it up the old stuff without having that. Right, it may be just a name on the contact record in Infusionsoft. If you want to make it, first level company record, maybe something you have to do before you start. So things like that, I think, just make sure that the contacts are good. And there's another one, which is I've seen people face. If you're using Workflow Max, when it syncs with Xero, it puts the first name, last name in the last name. And so, that doesn't look good, and it's, it should not be moved into Infusionsoft in that state. So you can run a cleanup recipe to kind of fix that issue before you start moving them to Infusionsoft, and so on. So basically, just make sure that the data is clean before you start the integrations.